This session is focused on the practical side of AI in finance, what's actually being used today, what's emerging next, and how finance teams can apply AI safely inside your business workflows. This is the second session in our AI in finance series, and it's fair to say a lot has moved since the first one. So we're looking forward to digging in and showing you what's changed. So today we're looking at a range of finance AI tools. We'll touch on a few layers of AI. We'll touch on some classic AI concepts, which most teams are already using for things like analysis and forecasting and communication sort of things. Generative AI, which is starting to change how teams interact with data, generating insights and communicating outcomes. And we'll also talk about agentic AI, so where systems begin to take on tasks within workflows and bringing in people when it's required. So we'll show you what they're looking like in practice and how they're starting to come together inside finance systems. And we'll also share a few demos of the tools that are available to us today, or will be very soon. A couple of quick housekeeping notes before we get started. You'll see a chat panel on the right where you can submit questions at any time. So feel free to fire those through and we'll come back to those at the end. And just note, we'll be running a few polls during the session. So feel free to answer those. It gives us a good insight from attendees to help us frame future content. To introduce the presenters in the session, Matthew is me. I'm a director at Annexa. I've been around sort of some 15 odd years doing ERP systems integration with a keen interest on business development and innovation. And I'm joined by a couple more tech experts and leaders, Will Goodborn and Matthew Passo. Maybe, Will, you could kick off with an intro and throw to Matt.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, I'm Will Goodborn. I'm a solution architect at Annexa. I've been working with NetSuite 15 plus years. Worked on the customer side to consulting, managed delivery teams, and designing a lot of NetSuite solutions. So right now I'm having conversations about AI with our customers and our potential customers pretty much every day. Matt?
Thanks, Will. Good afternoon, everybody. Matthew Passo, Senior Director for Oracle NetSuite. I support or head up the ANZ solution consulting team in the region. My team's remit is really to help businesses uncover their key challenges and create solutions that add value to their organization. I've been at NetSuite for 13 years. I've been in the ERP landscape for somewhat of 20 years, so well versed around businesses and the outcomes that they're looking to seek.
Cheers, Matt. Appreciate it. So clearly a couple of years NetSuite experience there. So quick introduction of Annexa, our business. We're NetSuite and system integration experts. We work with mid to enterprise organizations across Australia and New Zealand to modernize finance and operations. We've been doing this for almost 30 years, sort of supporting businesses from around, so maybe 20 mil rev up to, multi-billion dollar groups across retail, distribution, technology, and service industries. More recently, customers have been coming to us for advice, looking to help understand how they can apply AI capabilities, and particularly emerging across NetSuite and the wider technology system. There's a huge amount of opportunity there. So a big part of our work now involves helping teams identify where AI can genuinely improve business processes and how to introduce it safely into operational systems. So today we'll share what we're seeing in the real world, where AI is at, now for us, and where it's starting to show up in finance, and where the next wave is likely to have the biggest impact. So hopefully you get a bit of an insight in terms of how we're thinking from a finance perspective, and obviously a big part of what's changing, right now in AI is how it's starting to show up inside systems that finance teams rely on every day. So that's probably where NetSuite for Annexa plays a really important role in this conversation. So maybe Matt V, I know we'll be referring to NetSuite capabilities a lot throughout today's session, and I know a lot of people may be joining, may not be deeply familiar with the platform. Maybe you just give us a quick overview of what NetSuite is and why it matters in this context.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Matt. So for those that are less familiar with Oracle NetSuite, at its core, it's a cloud-based ERP that gives organizations everything they need to run their business efficiently and, more importantly, to accelerate growth. Bringing together financials, CRM, e-commerce, supply chain, and professional service automation into one unified platform, which really helps break down silos within a company. So rather than different parts of the businesses running separate systems or databases, everything operates on the same platform and the same underlying data. And it's really that underlying data model that's actually a big part of why NetSuite is able to move so quickly with AI. Oracle, as most may be aware, has been investing heavily in AI across its entire technology stack, from infrastructure through to applications. And those capabilities are servicing directly in NetSuite workflows. We embed AI directly into the processes that finance and operations teams use every day, whilst also providing customers ability to work with leading AI assistants in a secure and governed way. NetSuite is trusted by over 43,000 customers, utilising the best technology and ecosystems to power their business.
Love it. Thanks, Matt. Very helpful overview. And yes, we'll be referring to a lot of NetSuite capabilities throughout the session. So most people are here to see how AI works in practice. So we want to get straight into the examples and get into the good stuff. Will G, do you want to start us off with something familiar in terms of what we think of more as classic AI and give us some examples?
Sure. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, I suppose this is where most teams that we're talking to have, in general, already started experimenting. So doing data analysis, looking at patterns, doing forecasting and analytics. For some people, that might look like Excel or Power BI. Might be using a bit of Copilot to generate some commentary, or dropping something into ChatGPT to sense check some numbers. But inside NetSuite, we're seeing those kinds of capabilities built directly into the platform. So things like automated variance analysis across reports that you're actually using, predictive forecasting based on your historical trends, anomaly detection based on unusual transactions from learning your actual data patterns, right? So rather than exporting data out and analyzing it, those insights are starting to show up in the same place where the work's actually happening. So I'll give you one example of what that looks like in practice and just share my screen here. So I have this feature that's available now in the NetSuite platform called Narrative Insights. So that's basically available on a whole lot of different NetSuite records and reports, and it does basically what it sounds like. It provides natural language summaries and narrative insights based on your NetSuite data. So if I look at, say, an AR aging report, I can click on Generate Insight on that, and what I get is basically a natural language breakdown. So with some key risks, accounts identified, and then recommendations for follow-up on that. Or if I look at, say, another example, I'm looking at a backorder report. Inventory reports are typically a really good one because I might have a big long list of numbers that can be quite hard to read in this format. So if I click on Narrative Insights, I'm then getting something that's telling me the main items that I need to be looking out for, the major impacted customers, and again, some key takeaways. So it's going to suggest that I review the backorder quantities here for the warming block unit, where I've got a big opportunity there, and paying close attention to specific heavily impacted key customers. Or I could look at individual records. So like customers or items. If I look at country energy, I can again sort of get a nice natural language summary of the status of that customer that suggests maybe that they've got nice reliable payment practices. There's a lot of heavy communication engagement, summarizing key activities that they might have in progress. So just a really quick look at just one of the native AI features that NetSuite's currently built in.
Cool. That's a good example of some basic AI that's already helping teams to get some insights. So maybe, I guess the next step, getting a bit closer, where we can interrogate things in more detail and maybe interact, with our finance data. Maybe you could give us a look at some examples that are a little bit closer to the workflows themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me just share that screen again. So if you think about the AI that most teams are using today, a lot of the time it's either what vendors have sort of built directly into the platform, or you are getting a lot of spillover where people are manually copying things out into a big AI service like Claude or ChatGPT. So as soon as you want something a bit more specific, a bit more ad hoc, maybe, you start to see maybe some limitations around what can be built into a platform. And manual copying of data is obviously, a potential security and control issue. Not to mention it's just a bit inefficient and fragmented in terms of that workflow and the data control. So over the past year, NetSuite's made it possible to connect external AI platforms directly into the system data. So instead of the AI sort of sitting alongside those tools, you can plug it straight in. So the NetSuite AI connector is basically giving AI platforms like Claude or ChatGPT just a secure and standardized way to work with your NetSuite environment and your NetSuite data. It's using MCP, which stands for Model Context Protocol. It's basically an open standard that lets NetSuite expose different tools and capabilities to the AI service in a way that it can understand and work with. So with NetSuite, you're exposing things like records and saved searches and reports in a way that something like Claude can work with without sort of leaving a conversation. So I'll show you a couple of quick examples of what that can do. A really common one that we might see is getting asked to look into expenses. So without AI, typically you might jump into a dashboard. I'm going to start filtering, trying to work out what's changed, what cost centers are driving it, whether it's a once-off or it's consistent. And then once you've figured that out, you got to turn it into something useful, a bit of commentary or maybe some slides or something you can use to actually communicate what you found to the business. So what I'll show here is, taking the financial data from the real finance system and then analyzing what's happening and turning it into something usable straight away. So this is Claude, and I'm using that MCP connector to connect to my account for Catalyst Medical, which is a medical supplies company that I made up. And here's my prompt to Claude. So I'm saying, analyze my expenses across these different periods, create me a visual dashboard, tell me what's trending, what requires attention, what are some key opportunities in that. And then I've generated this dashboard so I can see key expense comparisons by category, year on year. But then importantly, I can see our key callouts. So I've got critical issues in my data. I've got unusual trends there, specifically for a medical supplies company that it's comparing to actual market data. So, for example, market spend is lower than you'd expect. There's zero explicit R&D listed there. And then in key opportunities, it's telling me I've got IT and telecom contracts spread out across a bunch of different vendors that I could save money by consolidating. Or I've got a whole lot of cost in my travel and expense policy that I could consider limiting with a tighter policy there. So I might look at that, say, yeah, that's great. I'm going to take some of that advice. I like the last 3 lines, and I've turned around and said, turn this into a presentation deck for me that I want to present internally. And it's done that. It's even taking automatic brand guiding from a brand guide that I've already uploaded. And at the end of that, I've got a PowerPoint presentation with those points that's fully formatted and ready for me to present to the business. So one other thing I'd call out there is it's possible to write into NetSuite there, not just sort of read and interpret. So as another quick example, I've asked Claude to scan in NetSuite for customers that have previously heavy activity and they haven't bought from us recently. So I've said, pick the top 2, suggest 2 items that they might be interested in, suggest a little pitch for me and create a follow-up task with that pitch in NetSuite against those customers. So this is another one where I might historically have been pulling multiple reports to try and consolidate that information for myself, right? And then manually creating actions. And it's gone ahead and done that for me automatically. It's identified JB Electronics and Macquarie, suggested some pitches to me, created tasks. And and I might say, look, we're really trying to shift these, particular probes, and I think I've got a really good chance of selling them to Macquarie. So tell me how many they've usually bought in the past, and then create an opportunity at a 10% discount in my NetSuite system so I can follow that up. And if I look down here, that's exactly what it's done, and it gives me a summary of what it's already done. And one other thing that I do think actually is worth calling out about this as well is there are a whole bunch of off-the-shelf connectors to other platforms. So you can really use this as a hub between multiple systems. So I've connected Slack, and that means people can enter order requests in natural language directly into a Slack channel, and I can ask Claude to go create those orders in NetSuite. I've even done it sometimes with handwritten notes that are attached. So someone's typed into the Slack chat, for example, Sun Life want to order 1 ultrasound unit, and this is picking that up. It's looking up the customer records, mapping the items, the pricing, etc. It might, based on my prompts, come back to me for some clarifications on things that it wants to fill out on those orders, and then it's gone ahead and created those straight into my NetSuite account based on those prompts. So just a couple of very quick examples there, but hopefully it gives you some sense of the beginnings of what that could do.
That's awesome, Will. And I think, for those, considering an ERP system, that connectivity to use self-service AI engines, I think, is a massive draw card, so that you're not kind of pigeonholing yourself into using one particular service, and you can securely connect to different services and only surface and share the information that you're happy to share with external providers. Hugely powerful in terms of use case. If you're a NetSuite customer, you should be making use of this capability already. Just wanted to zoom out a little bit. I think it's worth just kind of highlighting and reflecting on some of those use cases where we can apply AI practically right now. Obviously, we were just shown a couple of examples. Using the MCP protocol with NetSuite, leveraging Claude. But I guess if you're kind of having the conversation across your business, there's so much opportunity to identify quick wins across all areas. So from analysis and insights through to forecasting and planning, maybe it's transaction processing, generating orders or a part of your fulfillment or inbound receiving processes, reconciling different systems together, looking up, transaction records in one system of record, reconciling that back to NetSuite and tying together subledgers, communication, compliance, it goes on. So there are already so many, practical areas where AI can deliver real value right now. I guess it's where we bring all the functions together, to become more accurate, better decision makers and be more efficient with our jobs. We're able to do much more with less. And I guess this is where for us, it becomes really, really exciting for business leaders. And just for those that are already on NetSuite, we'll share a NetSuite AI roadmap after the session. So we'll cover off what's there now and what's coming next as well. So we'll shoot that through as part of sharing the comms for this webinar afterwards. So I mentioned this is where AI starts to get more interesting, where we kind of moving beyond having an LLM next to our NetSuite, and we start thinking about moving beyond a support function to participating in our work. This is where we're really excited. The concept of agentic AI obviously hugely changes that, where we can have the AI effectively extending or augmenting our teams to go and do work for us. It can be interactive, and then the AI comes and talks to us as finance or operations leaders for input where it's required. So you're no longer the one kind of guiding the processes step by step. You're handing over specific tasks or process or jobs within a workflow to AI to actually go do the steps for you. So the system actually takes on pulling the data, running the checks, preparing an outcome for you to review. So we're really excited by this opportunity. So we've been working really hard on sort of bringing this together. And at Annexa, we're sort of heavy on the innovation front. We've developed a product called Erston, which is effectively an agentic AI workflow. We've leveraged our expertise in the NetSuite and ERP space to make this effectively a NetSuite AI co-worker that can go and run processes for you. We wanted to show this today as, I guess, a really leading edge way of using AI in workflows. You can scan a little QR code. This product is in beta with a few of our, with a small group of our customers, but this will be available to general release in the not too distant future. So really excited to show this. Maybe Will G, I'll throw to you. You can fire up Erston and show us some agentic AI examples.
Sure, thanks, Matt. So I'll show a couple of quick examples of Erston. First one, 13-week cash flow forecasting is a really common one that can take a lot of manual work. So let's have a look here. This is going to be our 13-week cash flow forecasting agent. And let's just restart this here. So basically, this is our agent builder, and this is just going to ask me for a forecast start date and a minimum cash threshold. And then this is going to go run my 13-week cash flow forecast agent. And based on the guidance I've given the agent, it's going to run what is in NetSuite, typically, 5 or 6 different reports, right? And it's going to glue all that analysis together for me in a reproducible, consistent format. And it'll give me the audit on how those numbers were calculated. So I can see disbursements here. I can see maybe my accounts receivable report that it's running. I can see accounts payable within that, and any notes and assumptions on how it's derived that actual data. So I can see all of my inputs that it's taking and gone and run separately as part of the rules-based agent. And then it'll ask me if I want to proceed. So I just get a confirmation there, and I'll go ahead and say, yep, proceed with this one. And then that will go and work away and create my output. So this is going to follow, again, my predefined rules around how I want that to be assembled. And it's going to generate reconciliations. It's going to generate a summary, things like alternative scenarios and key recommendations around that. And importantly, again, it's going to do that in an output format that's consistent for our finance team and our reporting. So I'm telling it how I need to see that. You can see here it's actually generating a fully editable canvas as well with my full report. So if I want to make any changes, I can do that, and I can export it to a bunch of different formats. Let's say I want to export it to Word. So that's basically my 13-week cash flow forecasting agent. So similarly, I can show you quickly an example of our accounts payable agent. Let me just, again, show you here. So we would have our agent marketplace, and I would grab the AP automation agent. And there'd be a few ways I can kick that off, right? So you could sit there monitoring an inbox. You could chat with it directly, or you could just manually upload a bill like I'm showing here. And then once I upload that, the agent's going to take over and run through the AP process. So over on the left, you can see each step it's working through. It's going to review the bill, pull out the key data, match the vendor, run the PO and duplicate checks, and pull together a summary. And then it'll create the bill record and flag that for approval. And all of that, importantly, is driven by your business rules and controls, right? Every step's audit tracked. And if you've got specific process steps, you can configure those and train the agent to follow them. So now in the chat, it'll come back with a summary of everything ready for me to approve, and I can click approve there. And then it'll go and complete the rest of the flow through that agent. So now that the vendor bill's been created, I've got a reconciliation summary. I've got a link back to that actual bill in NetSuite. So there's my reconciliation. There's my bill. I can link back to INV 783 and see that record fully created and listed out there. And importantly, that's gone into NetSuite with the original PDF documentation. So all of my original stuff that I've uploaded, or any documents that would be attached to that bill, are there in communications against the file in that scanned document. So all of that's handled completely autonomously by the agent, but again, importantly, within audit and control rules that I can define.
That's awesome. Yeah, appreciate the sneak peek, Will. Yeah, we're able to effectively customize and personalize every business process that we want the agents to do for our clients, and do that all nice and securely and audit ready as well. So it's massively powerful. If you're interested in beta, you can sign up here and stay up to date with you know, the new releases and different use cases that we've got for Erston. So it's all moving very quickly. Matthew V, in the NetSuite world, really exciting announcements with SuiteWorld last year, and a lot of talk at SuiteConnect Connect this year. We cannot wait to get our hands on NetSuite Next with the new user interface of NetSuite and you know, the AI chat-like experience embedded through it. Be good to get an update in terms of all things NetSuite Next and what we can expect.
Yeah, certainly. So as you mentioned, if anyone was lucky enough to attend SuiteWorld last year, or more recently, one of the 2 Suite Connect events that we held across Melbourne or Sydney, you would have heard about NetSuite Next. So NetSuite Next, for those who haven't, is the next generation of NetSuite. It has AI embedded at the core of the system to make business software more intuitive, more collaborative, and more automated. It's more than that, though. It's conversational. It's agent-driven, and it's contextual aware based on your role at every step. It's designed for how we feel modern businesses work, by surfacing insights before you ask in some instances, and it speaks your language by turning information into action. As you mentioned, Matt, at the core of NetSuite Next is Ask Oracle. It's our natural language assistant that allows you to search, to navigate, to analyze, and to act across the entire data set using your own words. So we've seen the ability to connect to external clients, but we're going to provide that client-like experience directly inside NetSuite. Ask Oracle delivers rich, interactive responses grounded inside your live NetSuite data and embedded inside the workflow. But equally, it has transparency built in. So when it surfaces a number, you'll be able to drill in and understand how it made up that number. We saw just then with Erston, which is a great endorsement of what our partners can build inside the NetSuite platform. But NetSuite Next will also bring suite agents to continuously monitor your business, to analyze and to propose solutions, whilst allowing businesses to customize and tailor their own agents, aligning to business needs. And all of that will be done on our Suite Cloud platform. It's not all just AI. Matt, you also mentioned NetSuite Next is built on our award-winning Redwood design system. So that's essentially our new UI to deliver speed and simplicity with smarter filters, infinite scrolling, and a more refined layout, making working through transactions faster, more natural, whilst also taking on new clarity presented in reports so that you can act on it. So you've heard from me talking about it, but let's actually now take a look at a couple of examples of NetSuite Next in action.
Aware. It knows you. If you're a CFO asking, give me a summary of open POs, you're a warehouse manager asking the same question, it will surface inventory insights. It knows your business. For a SaaS company, if you ask what's driving margins this quarter, Ask Oracle might surface subscription renewal, upsell revenue, or customer acquisition costs. For a retail business, the same question could highlight product mix, vendor discounts, or regional sales trends. And it knows your moment. If you're on a customer record and type, show me the last 3 invoices, Ask Oracle responds instantly with that history.
So I guess that's a quick example of Ask Oracle, and I'm sure you'll agree that's definitely exciting. Now let's look at how it can turn conversational chat into a detailed analysis that can be shared across your entire organization.
Here, we interact with Ask Oracle to create a dashboard that shows our top pay them and if there are any trends. NetSuite creates a dynamic, interactive dashboard designed to easily display key information and metrics. This is what it means to collaborate with AI inside your system of record. Real-time insights made specifically for your needs and ready to become a part of your business processes. And ready to share with your colleagues so you're all collaborating around the same data and insights.
Awesome, Matt. The user interface looks so good. So we've definitely had a lot of interest from everyone waiting to get their hands on it. So it's super exciting. I think just kind of reflecting on some of the stuff that Will demoed with NetSuite's MCP connector, and then with Erston doing the agentic workflows to go and effectively autonomously do what a human would do effectively. And then with what NetSuite's doing to turn all of that data into information and help analyze what's happening, it's really nice to see all of the tool sets available to work together. And then we start to see some amazing value across the ecosystem. And I know in a lot of the Erston sort of workflows, we've been looking at, we do need to consider multiple systems. So we're looking at multi-system agentic workflow where we can effectively be using an AI agent to trigger and check, data and processes in multiple systems in order to do their job. And then, so having a great base in NetSuite as your system of record and audit in the GL, and using the core tools that people trust and can rely on, and then augment that with the AIs is starting to get some real traction with finance leaders as they better appreciate and understand, some of the technology risks associated. So it's a huge step, and I hope that gives the audience today a bit of an insight in terms of where we're thinking and where we can see things going more and more and more. So Matt V, in terms of what you're seeing, obviously you're talking to a lot of businesses and around the finance function. What do you think all this means for finance teams, and how do you think the role of finance is going to start to shift over the next 12, 24 months?
Yeah, it's a bit of a mixed response that we're seeing out there. I think as we've discussed today, AI comes in many forms. We hear about classic AI, generative AI, now more agentic AI. And as these new trends continually emerge, my advice really is to focus less on the technical speak and really understand the outcome, right? Because it's only once we understand an outcome, then we can think of, well, how can AI help me achieve that outcome? They're the opportunities for AI adoption, in my opinion. And let's translate that into core business context. I'm looking at some of the responses in the poll here. Accounts payable automation is probably the most important use of AI in a finance system. How can I reduce manual input, but still keep the human in the loop, which is one of NetSuite's key philosophies. Another more common trend that we're promoting internally is exception management. How do you identify a needle in a haystack? How do you identify this one outlier that's maybe not necessarily rules-based, but there's a difference in what we expect to be surfacing versus what was entered? So there's some basic scenarios, but really what I spoke about there was outcome. There wasn't AI technology, it wasn't large language models, it wasn't what form of AI we're using. It was more, I've got a business need, how can I address that outcome? The second point I would probably reference is just lean in. So I spoke with a lot of customers at our 2 Suite Connect events. And as I mentioned, it's a mixed bag. Some are well down the pathway of building their own agents and it's fantastic. Others are a little more suspect and they're getting mandates from their board saying, we need to invest in AI skills and we need to use AI. But what they're not understanding is, what are we doing, right? And they're sitting there going, well, I don't even know how to start. So my advice on them is really just start with what's available today. Whatever application you have, whether it be NetSuite or an external application, just start using AI. It's something I've promoted even with my wife's small business. Use AI to help you drive outcomes that will save you time and effort. And then in doing so, what typically happens is you end up promoting AI within your own workforce. You end up surfacing some of your ideas to your colleagues, and then they start thinking of it a little more differently, not just generative AI or ChatGPT, how do I ask a question, but more importantly, just lean in and use the features that exist natively to start with. And then I guess the third part is really just encouraging finance shifts from doing to reviewing and guiding, right? So again, we spoke about exception management before. Less time in writing reports and crunching numbers and exporting out to Excel and then trying to identify patterns. We're human at the end of the day. We can only observe what we've sort of trained ourselves to observe. But instead, let's actually use AI to do that analysis for us. It's going to be much quicker and much faster. And then we can review its analysis. Now, along the way, we may make adjustments or course correct. Someone mentioned before hallucinations, and that is true. So we've got to keep the human in the loop, absolutely. But we want to move our focus forward to more rules and controls and exceptions, reviewing analysis that's been conducted, as opposed to doing the number crunching and then ultimately getting to that analysis. And typically that's sort of the last mile in the process.
Yeah, that's a good outline. Another question for both of you guys. Obviously there's a lot in play already with AI. We covered a whole lot of things today. What do you think finance leaders should be focusing on today to make the most of what's available? Maybe Matt, you can kick us off.
So AI is only as good as the data it can surface. If it doesn't know, it can't provide insights. So really you want to focus on your data quality. And that's really going to be the biggest blocker. Fragmented data is going to provide limited AI value. And as I mentioned before, that's really where NetSuite plays its strength, and why we've been able to accelerate our AI journey is because we are a suite. We are a platform. Everything is built in. There's no two different records or systems or applications. But of course, businesses have various applications and systems, and they need to connect those. So tools like MCP really help be able to bridge that gap, bring things together. So data is really crucial. Secondly, I would focus around where are some of the key areas in a finance perspective that we can see some wins, right? So think about, I spoke before about AP automation. Think about AR. How can we help automate collections? How can we help identify risks and trends and patterns around credit limits? Think of fraud detection. How many transactions are we seeing? AI can surface and review that a lot quicker than a human can. It can spot small trends that we otherwise may miss. And then, as I mentioned before, expenses, or as we'll demonstrate before, expenses and compliance. They're a key component. You know, often we have a lot of approvals in systems and in processes to ensure that we're hitting compliance. But how do we ensure that those approvals are maintained, they're adjusting, they're adaptable as definitions change? And then I think the final point I really want to talk about is just learn from others. Right? None of us are experts in AI. It is shifting every day. One of my peers said yesterday, the most unintuitive version of AI is what we have right now, because it is evolving daily. And it is so true. You know, it's amazing what we have, but fast forward 20 years, we'll look back at this moment and think, wow, we're getting excited about these small things. So learn from others, right? Learn, go to events, speak to peers, understand real world use cases, apply it more and more. Apply it in your everyday world, and then you'll start to identify patterns and opportunities on a business context where, hey, if I can achieve that over here, what can I achieve over there? So that would be my three advices, just to summarize: data quality, target areas like AP, AR, compliance, and then learn from others.
I mean, I think probably what I'm seeing a lot of is stories where people have started right out of the gate with a big AI strategy that's really expensive and time consuming, and then sort of struggle to see results from that are tangible, right? You see stories of it on LinkedIn and the news all the time. So if people are pretty early on in that AI journey, I'd pick one process. just that's manual and repetitive and take up teams' time. Like, could be month-end journals, could be accounts receivable, maybe it's a reporting thing, but something that you can get in and execute and actually measure whether it has a benefit. And I think that ability to measure something, whether it's actually helped, also is key, and what the benefit has been. And that will compound over time, I think. The first time you use something like the expense analysis that we looked at, you might still be exploring, seeing what works, but the time after that and the time after that, you're getting prompts that work, what outputs you're getting a sense of how to work with these tools. And I think that's where it is really going to start to actually have some impact. So I wouldn't wait for the perfect use case or try and design that out, just pick something, prove it works, and it will build organically from there. That's what we're seeing.
Cool. Thanks, Will. And I couldn't agree more. I know bringing our customers together at the events that we do and smaller user groups to talk about, Earthstone or specific kind of business processes that we can innovate with is the most value that we get. So being able to iterate with our customers and compare notes on the things that are causing us a bit of friction, the ability to do business faster is definitely key, and start small. Yeah, very sound advice. We'll just simple use case, get it in production, and then start to see it adding value. Just seeing if we've got some more questions coming in. We've got the Q&A. We're just navigating the webinar tool. Will NetSuite Next be configurable so that we have control of when it's turned on? It's a significant update that will require change management. Ideally, we would like to be able to enable this by user role. That might be a great one for you, Matthew V.
Yeah, so NetSuite Next is going through a global rollout, and it's all being managed and phased accordingly. So right now, we've got some customers in the US that are in a preview mode. We'll move closer towards production by later in the year, and then they'll start to look at international rollout with ANZ covered inside of that. In addition to the question was around, well, how do you enable it? So the best part is it is the same application. Nothing has changed. It's the same underlying infrastructure, and it literally is turn on and roll. So users have the ability to turn on. They equally have the ability initially to revert back. So speaking with some of our customers at Suite Connect, some teams like finance may not want to change to NetSuite Next, but the sales team, on the other hand, may be ready. So it can be on a role-by-role basis where you can say, and even on a user-by-user basis. Long-term, NetSuite Next will be NetSuite as we know it. So, flicking back to what we have today probably won't be an opportunity, but that is down the road. So yes, it is going to be fully customizable and giving users that ability to enable as they need.
Very cool. How secure is the data you're putting into Claude? What is the risk of loading? What is the risk to loading the data? I don't know. Matt V, you want to grab that one as well around MCP?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So as Will demonstrated before, NetSuite AI Connector Service is connecting to external clients that support MCP protocol. A simple analogy is a USB port. Every device around the world uses a USB-A, now USB-C, so it's a standard bridge, if you will. If the client doesn't support MCP, we're not connecting to NetSuite. That's the first point I would say there. More importantly, we're not creating a direct connection. So there was a question around integration. What we've created is we're using that protocol. Then we're adhering to your role that you give your users inside of NetSuite. So for example, your sales team. Firstly, you have the choice. Do they want to be able to connect to MCP or not? Once you grant them that choice, if they try to ask, show me the business's financials, it's not going to be able to return any data because the underlying role and permission does not allow it to connect. Secondly, there was a question around accuracy on numbers. MCP uses what we call a standard tool suite app. And inside that suite app is about 13 different tools. And it can surface things like reports or searches that you have permission to. So to get a better prompt, really it comes around prompting skills. Tell it, use this report, tell it, use this save search, and it will marry up with that data. But fundamentally, that is the security layer within. So it won't surface anything it can't. You have full control as to what users you granted access to, and then you're making connection with your secure connection, no different to going to your browser and logging into NetSuite.
Yeah, and I think there was a question in the chat about the idea of AI hallucination, as well as someone sort of asking about the right way to point it to the right data. So as you call out, like the more specific you can get, and you will kind of learn that pattern over time. But you can also see in something like Claude the working that it's doing behind the scenes. So you didn't really see it in the demonstration, but you are able to drill into exactly what it's pulling out and the steps that it took to get to each thing. So it's worth just interacting with that and kind of seeing how that works as you go.
Do you see NetSuite users bypassing off-the-shelf FP&A tools as they start to leverage AI and their internal BI tools? It's a great question. Matt or Will, anyone want to take that one?
So I would answer that by saying fit for purpose, right? FP&A tools, analytics tools are built to do a role. AI can, on face value, provide a dashboard, but is it designed to go and ingest huge amounts of data and interpret best of breed functions? That's a question for yourself to ask, right? My honest answer is most likely not. It's an enabler. So we're seeing tools right now, if we take NetSuite Analytics Warehouse as an example, where we've now created an MCP connector over the top of it. So the idea behind that is I now want to query that data model. That data model may be connected with a wealth of data that's unique to my business, such as Salesforce, Shopify, that we're consuming inside of there. So it's not necessarily a compete. I see it as a complement to what those tools have, and those tools will also have AI built within them. Yeah,
and I think what they can often provide that sort of off-the-shelf AI or built-in AI stuff can't is the sort of codified structure, right? At the end of the day, in an analytics warehouse or in a planning tool, you will have a defined exact way that you want that to work for a particular organization, and those tools are very good at doing that. AI can often take different routes to get to the same sort of output. So I think they work as complements rather than necessarily being a straight sort of compete.
Can AI support the implementation process for transitioning to NetSuite? That one's a pretty quick one. Absolutely. So using AI to help with all elements of implementation, absolutely. So then Annexa as an SI, using AI to be more accurate and faster in terms of the services we can deliver for our customers is really important. Simple examples, even using our Erston tooling, training up Erston to understand how to import data, how to map data, and how to translate data, has had some really game-changing wins in our ability to interpret, really large unstructured sources of data and then translate and integrate much faster than we can do using the standard tool sets and integrate via APIs in the back end of NetSuite. So absolutely, AI is helping on the implementation side. Will there be any information released to help prepare for NetSuite Next, and will NetSuite Next impact existing scripts or customizations? Should be a quick one, Matt. There, just got a couple of minutes left.
Yeah, so there will be scheduled communication when we're ready to accept customers in region on the preview release, and then when we move closer to full production release. As I mentioned, it's on the same code base, so scripting, customizations are all compatible within NetSuite Next. Was there another part to the question?
No, just scripts and customizations and any impacts. So yeah, that's definitely what we've been advised, that we're able to toggle on and off, but obviously it's the same data model, so we're expecting everything to be business as usual. And there might be room for one more. Is there a roadmap for the AI development in NSOW, FSM, EPM? Yes, there is. And there was actually a whole bunch of stuff that was announced at Suite Connect. Matt mentioned one before, which is the MCP availability for EPM, which is exciting. but then there's also a bunch of specific AI enhancements to all components within EPM, whether it be the account reconciliation module, the planning and budgeting module, or the consolidation FCCS modules. There are AI enhancements across all of them. So I'd suggest you, link up with Annexa or your NetSuite account manager, and we can actually share release notes on what's available for 26 now. I think that's about it for Q&A. There are a lot more. I would very much encourage, if there's more conversations, get in touch with someone on the panel or someone at Annexa. We'd be more than happy to have a chat about, any of the things that we've spoken about today. We're super busy with, systems integration, AI application across all of the things we've spoken about. So we'd love to hear from you and understand how we could help you further. Thanks so much for joining today, and special thank you to Matthew V at NetSuite and Will G from Annexa. Appreciate your insights, fellas. Thank you.
Thanks
very much.
Thanks, Matt.